Well, we have an exciting program today. This month we're pleased to welcome two of our City Council candidates for Ward 2. We've got Nicholson and we've got Pam Walzer. And last time I made them do a coin toss. I don't know if you preference. Why don't we go ahead with ladies first? Is that okay with you, Dawn? Alrighty. We'll go ahead and we'll have Pam Kana. She works as a jewelry artisan and a substitute teacher. She holds a degree in biology, chemistry, and a graduate degree in biochemical genetics. She is a member of the Zoo City Zimmerges. There, that's the ones. And she enjoys volunteering for a lot of local organizations such as the International Wildlife Festival and the Western Montana Fair. So please help me welcome.
I have mic. Got to do a few little slight corrections. I don't have a master's degree. I've got 3 years on a master's degree, and but didn't finish that.
Wow, an honest politician.
An honest politician. So I was able to get a job that required a master's, so it was a good time to leave the program I was in. And I also have done work for MDA with the Brewfest. The Zoo City Zimmergist is, when I was president of it, we got very involved with the Brewfest and doing the judging for, first time ever, judging for the different beers that are there.
Just lining up every year. Everybody wants to be a beer judge.
I don't do that. I don't have enough mass to be a beer judge. It's a big job. Those guys really work pretty hard at it. It is a tough job to have to do that. But I think it really helps with the Brewfest too. And we also work with Big Sky Brewing, and I brought this idea from Portland that we work with them. They brew a batch of beer, and half the proceeds go to the club to help the club function and what we do, and then the other half goes out to charity. So it was a really good trying to get involved with the community. So don't have a whole time I can talk forever on things. So I came to Missoula in 1999 to go to school to become a high school science teacher, and loved going to school, loved the opportunity to become a teacher, but just like dozens and dozens and dozens of other people, many people want to be a science teacher in Missoula, Montana. So I've been waiting for that one perfect job because I'm a laboratory scientist and those guys don't want to retire. So I've been substitute teaching ever since, and I actually really, really enjoy it. Since I couldn't get a full-time teaching job, like many Missoulians, I made it work. I committed to Missoula. I wanted to live here. I wanted to be here. Missoula was more important than being a teacher. So I was able to develop into this artisan jewelry making, which now pays the bills. And substitute teaching is now a hobby. So that's really great. When running for city council, people have been asking, well, what kind of experience do you have that'll make you be a good city council person? One of the things that I did to try to commit to Missoula was I've ran for and won a seat on the 2004 Government Study Commission, where we got a chance to sit for 2 years and look at city government and see what's right, what's wrong, how does the whole structure of the city government work. And it was very, very informative. We saw a lot, and that experience on there, some people have even commented that it was actually almost like being an incumbent. Got to really study what the city is all about. And during that time, the majority of us, and I went with the majority, believed that the big issue with city was the council was not taking their job of seeing the overall vision for the city. And they were kind of turning it over to the mayor, whether it was because of dealing with minutia or just having conflicts, and the mayor wound up having to make lots of decisions. So what I would like to see is that the council take back their responsibility as the policy making, group within the city. They're the legislators. They're the ones that decide how we're going to run this entire city, what the vision is for the city. And so I'd like to really focus on developing good long-term planning, good long-term vision for the city. Now, the city council should never do that in a vacuum amongst themselves. And it's very important to have a really good outreach to everybody, especially in early stages of development. So probably one of the biggest failings in recent times that I could imagine with the city, whether it's the mayor's office or the council, is still continues on in contention, especially for Ward 2, is West Broadway and what happened with the diet. Compare what happened, the decision making and everything that happened up to that point, and then step away and see what happened with the charrette. I don't know if anyone here was involved in the West Broadway charrette. I went to a bunch of those. And the difference was enormous. As a citizen, I was angry with what happened with the West Broadway diet decision making. It all didn't seem to make sense. I wasn't privy to everything, but it was all seemed to be messy and we were being told what to do. Go to the charrette years later, and we got together and got to talk about our vision for what Missoula should be like, and what the best use of that piece of land, and how we want to see that section grow and develop. And in the end, I just looked at it and said, 3 lanes make sense. I listen. If you want to make West Broadway a sense of place similar to downtown, you want people to stop there and get out and use the businesses there, you have to find a way to get them out there and not just have something go pushing the traffic straight through. So those people who were involved in the charrette and with the development of the West Broadway vision, I think there was a lot of positive, very good stuff versus what happened before. So I'm a big believer in lessons learned. You learn from something, we all make mistakes. Try not to ever do it again. So hopefully as on City Council, I would like to continue that kind of operation with the public, whether it's a charrette or going out to organizations like you, asking for input, having subcommittees or people come in and really help out. As far as downtown and economic development, I am such a supporter of what we have such a beautiful downtown. My work is sold downtown. The fact that we have tourists that come in here and use this downtown is fantastic. And anything that can be done to keep this vital and keep it growing, it would be better. The more, one thing I found out with jewelry sales, the more the merrier. The more you've got, the more people come, the more money everybody gets to make. So we have so much that we can offer. The downtown area has so much that we can offer the rest of the city. I'd love to keep it as vital as possible. Likewise, to help keep it vital, really important is to have residential down here too. To have people, too many places around the country you'll go and they've got a nice, lovely downtown, it's very active, and at 5 o'clock, everybody goes home. And our downtown's not like that, and I want to keep it that way, that have it more vital, more whatever, keep it going. One of the things that we were chatting with at my table, and I've been talking about a lot to people, is we have a good start of a bus system, but it's not, just like there are issues with West Broadway, what's been happening, it's not done. There's so much more for our bus system we can do. So many people have said, I've heard just friends before I started running and myself, we won't take the bus because it's just not convenient. We'd like to take the bus, but it takes so long to get anywhere. So I think Missoula is getting ready to be moving into the world of premier bus service. How we're going to pay for it, I'm not sure, but I would do everything I can to find a way to get us to move to a system that is much more efficient, that comes every 15, 20 minutes. You don't have to sit and wait a half an hour for the next bus to come. Something that's good. You can have talk to people in Grand Creek, and they'd love to be able to have park and ride They could just, leave their cars at the base and be able to take a bus into the town. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to get rid of some of the traffic problems? People don't have to be driving across town, they could take a bus. I spent some time in Central Europe this summer, and really nice not to have to be worrying about a car. That there are buses and trains, and they've got a very involved transportation system, a lot bigger population, but it's really nice to be able to guarantee you can get from one place to another easily. There is, we've proven with North Reserve, you build a road, the cars will come. And so I'm less into building new roads and widening roads than to try and find ways, work with traffic engineers, try to find ways to make those streets more efficient, whether it's timing, turn signals, one-ways, or making one-ways two-ways, changing parking, whatever it takes to make the streets more efficient, and then encouraging the alternative transportation systems. Not to mention encouraging development so that people don't have to drive across town to do things. They can, if anyone was here for the SOPRS conference, I think one of the terms they used was a new urban model. The idea is having lots of downtowns ideas, that people live and work near places, and then another node where someone can live and work and recreate. That way you don't have to drive from one part of the city to the other part of the city just to go to work, go to school, whatever. So lots of ideas I have. Ward 2 is the most unique ward. Starts on Orange Street and everything north of the river to the end of city limits, except for a small chunk of north side. And it's a very diverse, unique community, from some of the oldest houses in town, oldest neighborhoods, to the very newest. The houses are still coming up. It includes West Broadway, North Reserve, West Side, some of the North Side, Hellgate Meadows, Pleasant View, the Ranch, and Grant Creek, Canyon Creek, lots of different diverse places. And I have been talking with many people all around and really feel that I can represent all of those people. Isn't it nice to be able to have lots of opportunities to live in completely different environments? I don't expect everyone to live like me, and I don't want to live like somebody else. So when we could all have pretty much what we want, but often compromise is the you have to compromise, and you can't necessarily get everything you want. You might have to compromise, and I'm willing to do that. The paper today, she quoted me as saying, "I am a middle child, and I know what compromise is all about." Let's see. How am I doing my 20 minutes? Just keep rambling? I think you guys are going to have questions and answers later, right?
Would love to ask you questions.
Oh, okay, now is a good time for questions, and now wait for, okay. Questions, anybody?
You talk about vision and compromise. I know there's been a lot of dissension between the city council now, a lot of polarizing. How do you see the best possible solution to coming together and working for the big picture?
I am kind of confused about some of the polarization, because there seems to be involving issues that really don't need to be polarizing. But it does take two to have a conversation and to negotiate. So there's things for me that it's just, if it's not all that critical, and I really don't think it's that important of a big issue for the city, I'm willing to just talk. Okay, it's essentially it's doing politicking, you trading. Okay, I'll support you on this because I don't have anything problem with it, versus this is something very important for me. Currently before council, actually Bob Jaffe's doing a fantastic job with the what's going on with the SID for Hillview. There is a lot of potential for negotiation for things like impact fees. There are complete opposite polar. People don't think we need to have impact fees, that they're bad for the city, for development, and others like me who think impact fees are a good tool to control taxes for everybody, to help fund growth up front. But just to charge an enormous amount of money, that's bad. So maybe we can negotiate, find ways of finding a middle ground. But hopefully the other side, whichever side you're on, is will realize it's important to negotiate. But if people are going to dig their heels in, there's hardly anything you can do if someone's going to dig their heels in. We had that with the study commission. We offered compromises, but when someone digs their heels in, you just like, it's either this or that. And like, well, okay, if we're not going to go negotiate, then I guess we can't go any farther. I can't give everything you want, because that's capitulation. Yes, sir.
You were talking earlier about the West Broadway issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ward that you're looking at, and you were talking about that being more like a downtown.
That's the goal was to for the West Broadway vision.
And first off, where are we talking in terms of geographically? Is this from Orange Street out to Mullen?
To Russell.
To Russell.
Just to Russell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the area, the West Broadway vision concept. From Russell onward, I'm not even aware of what the plans are for that. The zoning is there. Initially, there were two completely different zoning areas. So we're talking about the narrow section the city doesn't have very much right of way on, versus the nice broad section from Russell all the way out. That's different. And some of those issues also involve Russell Street itself and the Russell Street Bridge. And I like to see the big picture and realizing that that section of West Broadway is affected by many things. It's not just its own itself, it's affected by traffic on Russell. And when the Russell Street Bridge comes in, there will be an effect. The Mullen Street light on West Broadway affected traffic on West Broadway. I mean, I live there, I travel that road. I know that long before the diet went in, that light went in, and things changed right then. And then it's just seems to be compounding on top of it. But is it just the diet that's causing any traffic issues, or is it the development out on Flynn Lane? There are an enormous number of people over there. There are now over 1,000 registered voters along Flynn Lane, which according to the US Census, there might have only been like 63 people living there. So there's enormous amount of bodies that are now having to access the city. And how are they getting there? North Reserve, West Broadway, they got, so there are a lot of issues, and that's the sort of things like looking at the big picture. It's just not one little thing. There's a lot of, you do one thing and it affects something else completely. So.
I guess and again, it's all just looking at it from different perspectives, but in the downtown you have a lot of these nice old buildings that were constructed, and you have, even though parking is really bad, mm-hmm. you at least have some. But even with the restricted lanes out on Broadway, when I visit a business out there, parking is even much worse than downtown. I just don't understand how that concept I don't understand the concept. I don't see how that can ever become a downtown, and I don't get where are you going to put the cars anyway?
The idea for the redevelopment is the idea that it's redevelopment. It's not the existing buildings, or the concept is from the charrette is slowly evolving over 10, 20, 30 years, that the existing buildings probably are going to all be replaced by something that is similar to downtown, but with parking being taken into consideration, whether it's underground parking, whether or not it's parking in the rear. But the idea would be to have a more pedestrian-friendly area where you can walk versus just drive in and drive out. It not being an automotive-based economy, but to be something that is, again, the sense of place. To have also mixed, not just businesses, but residential. so that you have, the idea is get people, instead of having to drive, being there, spend all their time in their car to get from one place to another, to let them get out of their car and do, whether they live there and work there and shop there and eat there and recreate there, or can walk easily to someplace else, or drive there and spend time in that location. The idea is to get people, out of their cars. And I know downtown desperately needs more parking. I don't know where you are on the diagonal parking issues, and there had been quite a while ago there was a plan to change North Higgins, to redo the streetscape on North Higgins to reduce the lane amount to 3-lane and with diagonal parking. And I know that was just about ready to go, and then the concrete cost went through the roof, and that whole got shelved. So I don't know where you are on that now. So the engineers say 4-lane is not necessarily the way to go. It's counterintuitive that, wait a minute, you can't move that many cars. And they say, yeah, you can. But I think it's not there at West Broadway. We haven't gotten there. I think all the controversy just stopped. All the potential changes and improvements froze right then. And so there's lots of issues with left turnability throughout that area. Lots of issues with it. Yes?
What's your thoughts on the continuation of the 3-lane on to Madison?
I'd like to have more discussion on that. I think if it could increase the amount of parking, which that would be the concept, it would be increasing the parking. And if you would be able to consider things like arrows so people can make their turns or whatever, it'd be nice to see a feasibility how it could work, but I would not be against it. I think that we need to step away from, this is a really bad idea, and just stop and think about it and deal with the experts and talk about what's possible and come together and see if we can come up with a good plan. I don't see that wouldn't reject it right away and would be very welcoming. The consultants that were here really thought it was a good idea, and that it should continue the whole way. Broadway should not be a way to move cars from one end of the town out the other end of the town. You want to get them to your store, to your business.
I thought the consultants at the end of the analysis of what is currently 3 lanes, they actually came back with their final proposal after a period of time, actually envisioned that becoming 4 lanes again.
Did they? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I would be. Did they? Okay. I guess I'm a little ignorant on it then. I was everything up into that very final thing. I was able to go all the meetings and didn't make that last meeting. So again, this is not a waffle. I will go with what the experts say is the best way to deal with it, and not try and keep the emotion out of it. It's whatever's the best. But the engineering, the science is I will believe with, and I think we just too often just let our emotions and what we've always done stays, there. So if they really think that's the best, then yeah. And thank you for that. Okay.
We probably have time for one more question before our next speaker.
Do you have a laptop, and will you be taking it to the meetings?
I don't have a laptop. Those are city provided. I don't even have a cell phone. And I have stood before city council and saw, when I was especially on the study commission, we had a meeting specially with them to chat and to see people working typing on their computers. And it was pretty much across the board. You can't blame one section over another, one group over another. I thought I was very disturbed because I felt I wasn't being paid attention to. And so I'm right there with you. Now, I do appreciate that, having a laptop to have reports and things right there. But I agree, it's extraordinarily, rude to be doing something else other than what's the business at hand.
Yeah, thank you very much. you didn't get a chance to ask Pam, and the same would go with Don. I know they'd be very happy to visit with you after the luncheon today. I'd like to introduce our next candidate to you. That is Don Nicholson. Don's a native Missoulian and retired executive in the pulp and paper industry. He's running for his second term on City Council, and he's a member of the UM Alumni Association, Central Kiwanis, and the UM Hall of Fame Committee. He and his wife have a combined family of 8 children and 14 grandchildren. So please help me welcome Don.
That 8 children and 14 grandchildren makes Christmas a big deal. It really does. I want to say to Pam, thank you very much for your service on the study commission. That was a 2-year endeavor. It was lots of hard work, and we collectively appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much. And to this forum, for us to have a chance to talk is really pretty hard to find. So I thank MDA for the chance to come and talk and discuss issues that are, I think, very interesting stuff. Not too many people do. My background, you have the capsule of it. I'm born and raised Missoulian, went to school here, have a BA in chemistry, began my career out of school in the Army, a couple years in Korea. Then I started working in the pulp and paper business. Lots of training jobs in labs and engineering departments. Ultimately, when I was 37, I was managing a mill in Kentucky. And then I went through a series of mill management positions. Kentucky, 3 mills in Oregon, 1 in Connecticut. Joined a company that made machinery which made paper. Was president of that company's division in Brazil and vice president in Canada. So I've had an awful lot of big business experience. I like to think successful. I headed up efforts for recycling paper in every one of the mills I was in, the last one being kind of the mark on the wall where 100% of the raw material was recycled paper and 100% of the water came from the sewer plant. So it was a totally enclosed, complete mill, one of maybe 2 or 3 in the country. So retired back to Missoula. I really like business, I like competition. So I'm in the business of fixing automobiles now in a small business. I have 10 employees. We're growing at a nice, satisfactory rate, doing what I think is good work, satisfying a demand that's good for me and my partners. So the question I get asked a lot is, why are you, now that you're such an old mutt, why are you interested in keeping on working? Well, I like work, and I really like Missoula, and I think it needs good leadership. It needs people who are interested. That's not a commodity that's easy to find. This is interesting work, it's important work. People ask me, are you having a lot of fun? Well, no, I'm not having a lot of fun, but it is interesting. When this comment, the question about the emails came up, and yeah, I do have a laptop, but nobody was surprised when I had 0 on the exchanges. So I'm not much, I read the laptop, I read it, and I like the resource. But I have hands that don't type very well. So that's an issue. So what's going on in Missoula that should be interesting to the folks here? First of all, I'm a businessman. I believe in downtown Missoula, MDA. My small company sponsors this out in the evening time thing that you have down at Caris Park and have for several years. We're interested in the success of Missoula. I worry about the success of Missoula though, because I think there's an awful lot of small businesses kind of feeding off of each other. There's very little big business in Missoula area. There's very little outside money coming in. We need more of that. We talk it to death, but we don't do very much about it. The only real, I guess, outside businesses that are coming into town are the federal government, Smurfit Stone, Roseburg, state government to a lesser extent, the hospitals. And I'll come back to the hospitals in a minute because I think they're so important to us that we should spend more time and more effort on working with the hospitals. We get down many times, we talk a lot in city business about growth. We over-exaggerate growth. The growth of Missoula is about 1%, it's not 3 or 4. You really have to measure the county growth rather than Missoula because a lot of our growth is by annexation. But nonetheless, it's 1%. And we can handle that and are handling that pretty well, frankly. The growth is an experience factor for the businesses, which you guys are interested in, and I'm sure you see it as I do. Many people make comments about North Reserve and how bad it is and so forth and so forth. But the truth be told, and I talked to George Lambros, who's a grade school friend of mine, when North Reserve happened, George, how did your business do at the mall? He said, well, I was worried about it to start with, but the foot traffic at the mall went up 50% when North Reserve went into action. The real story there is North Reserve is a magnet. It's a magnet for bringing business from Polson, from Salmon, Idaho, from Hamilton, from Butte, from Anaconda, and a tremendous amount of business comes to this town because of North Reserve. I can't go into Costco without dropping about $200 or $300, and there's only 2 of us in my family. And we buy huge boxes of cereal that we never get finished and so forth. Trouble is, everything is so big. But North Reserve as an entity is a huge magnet and a really good thing for the commercial aspect of Missoula, which when you come to shop on North Reserve, you also go out to dinner and you go shop at the shops downtown and you ride the carousel and on and on and on. It's a very good thing in my view. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that I think, and Pam and I agree on this, the City Council has not taken back the authority that they should have. The City Council should be doing way more in the way of policy making. There's too much staff does this, mayor says that, we agree or disagree with that. More often than not, we are agreeing with what the staff wants. And it's most evident in prioritizing what we do. We don't have a system for prioritizing very well about what intersection should we work on, what roundabout is most important, what business effort should we make, what outreach should we do. The prioritizing of the city's resources is critical. The shortage of resources, financial resources, is becoming more and more apparent all the time. We have just changed our capital improvement budget from 1.6 million down to 1.3. There's a clue there. We just took $400,000 in water fees for hydrants, that it didn't go back to the taxpayers in tax rebates. It didn't go to paying down the debt on the swimming pools. It did go into the general fund to just pay for whatever else we want to do. Now that's not just $400,000 this year, that's $400,000 this year, and the same $400,000 next year, and on and on and on. That fund could become something like a sinking fund for relief of SIDs, which we talk to death. We build this city on the back of the taxpayers. SID for Pineview Park, SID for England Boulevard, SID for what's the one up on the hill? Hillview Way. Those are huge, huge costs. The city does not have the money to do that. The city really needs to kind of look at the expense side of our budget more closely than we have heretofore and see if we really need all of the things we're spending money on. The charrette, $120,000 charrette on East Broadway or West Broadway for studying things. Too many times we take a charrette as a means to justify decision making. We really are elected and we really are a representative government. Representative means just that. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. We represent our constituents as best we can. Ward 2, I'll tell you for sure, is a difficult ward to represent. And Pam alluded to that because we have Grant Creek, we have North Side, West Side, we have the area out by Costco in that area. It's as diverse as any place in the city. So anyway, prioritizing, it needs work. How to do that, we need to develop that system. Taxes, we need to work on the expense side of it and not worry so much about the income side. We spend way too much time working about how do we get more money, what impact fee can we put off on businesses, which is what's going in front of the council as we speak almost. And some of those are going up not a factor of 2 or 3, but a factor of 10 from what they are now. In my view, that's way, way too much, and I'll be working to try to reduce that. It's, and I guess I'd like to spend the rest of my time answering questions, except to say that this city election, one more thing. The mail-in ballot is I think, doing two good things. Number one, it's forced the elections office in the county to scrub up their lists. They mailed out 48,000 ballots out, 13 or 14,000 came back undeliverable. That just speaks to the issue that they weren't cleaning up their lists as they should have been. So now they're clean. So the 16.6% return on the primary election, which was in fact double what it normally was really more like 21 or 22%. So we're getting a lot more response than anybody ever anticipated, and that's a really good thing. We're really going to find out this time with the mail-in ballot, how do the people of Missoula really feel about their city government, because the stark contrasts of candidates is pretty real. There's, well, Pam and I, we often don't agree on things. We occasionally do. The portrayal of the city council disagreeing, I think, is badly overemphasized. We do have disagreements, no doubt about that, but an awful lot of the time we are agreeing, passing things. The consent agenda has maybe 10 to 8 to 15 items on it every week, which means 100% of the council agreed. So there's a lot of agreement going on. Anyway, with that, I'll stop and say you're going to get ballots mailed out here October 16th. That's about a week away. And then mail your ballots back and vote for the best candidate. No questions from anybody?
Can you address the proposed impact fees a little bit? One of the concerns that I have is, you know, if the impact fees negatively affect business growth in the downtown and instead generate more sprawl. So can you tell us kind of where you're at on that?
Impact fees are service related, park related, police related at the present time. We were buying police cars with impact fee money, which turned out was the wrong thing because it's a capital investment. We had to shift that back to the capital fund. So police went down, parks went down 55%. The idea being to generate some money for transportation. They were trying to find $1 million for transportation projects. If you look through the impact fee, it comes down on people who remodel their businesses or who build new or whatever. And it's intended to mitigate the cost of capital infrastructure in that area. So if you're going to build a park, you need slides and swings and things. The developer will plant the grass, but the impact fee pays for the playground equipment and so forth. I think the impact fees we have now are pretty fair. I would support a small increase, maybe 5 or 10%. I won't support the 300 or 400% that's envisioned now. Transportation needs to have some, but not as much as is envisioned. Yes?
To speak to that, in saying that the impact fees you feel are fair, you know, let's look at a particular subdivision that's recently been built across from an elementary school where there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes, and a road's too narrow and there's not a fire department near and all that sort of thing. How can we justify that? I mean, how
Let's talk about Pleasant View in that exact regard, because it is right across Flynn Lane from the Hellgate school system. Pleasant View is probably the most successful development in this town in years and years and years. The impact fees that are there are going to be used to, they've already been used to help improve England Boulevard to go through from that area to Reserve Street. That's a brand new piece of infrastructure. The impact fees have been used and are going to be used to populate that park once the park gets seeded and grassed in and so forth. So,
is there a plan for Flynn Lane to do something with Flynn Lane?
I sure hope not. Flynn Lane is a dangerous road in terms of the school. The parallel road is Mary Jane, and it's east about 200 yards. Mary Jane is intended to become the main road through there. So there'll be an intersection of England Boulevard and Mary Jane leading off to Broadway and to Mullen Road. All of which is an improvement over just Mullen Road, which is what was there before. So the impact fee is picking up some of those costs, working on it, and to that extent, it doesn't do the whole thing, but it's a part of the answer. And it's a decent answer because the growth in that area is helping to pay for the necessary infrastructure that all areas need. It's not paying for fire stations and things like that, which will continue to be general obligation bonds, but it is doing a pretty good job of some of those minor things, in my opinion.
What are your thoughts on the Performing Arts Center on the Riverfront Triangle?
Performing Arts Center, I think, is kind of a warm, fuzzy subject. People who believe in the Performing Arts Center believe it passionately. My view is the place where they want to put it on that triangle is city property. I'm more than happy to talk to the performing arts people about some sort of a methodology wherein they could acquire the site and we could acquire, I would hope, some funds for a police facility. I think there's a trade there that makes sense. Perhaps it gets into some sort of a milestone, fundraising effort. The first milestone being they purchase the site. And then they have their site, we have our money, they can go ahead and finish it. If it doesn't work out, they have a site they can sell. But some proposal like that makes sense to me. Yes?
Where do you see a convention center in Missoula?
I'm sorry, help me, Kim.
A convention center? Where would you see a convention center in town?
Well, the Hilton Hotel is kind of a convention center start. They will handle meetings of 1,000 people there. The county on the fairgrounds area has talked about a metro-like facility, which is perhaps what you're thinking of. I think, first of all, we don't make as full use of the university facilities as perhaps we could or should. And somehow there's a little line around the university that says this is ours and you guys once in a while will open it up, but not enough. There needs to be better dialogue between the city or the performing people and the university on what those facilities should be used for. There are gaps in what we need, and one of them perhaps is a metro. I think we take lessons from Billings on that and see how well theirs works and what does their programming work like and so forth. It's one of those kind of, now I'm back to my prioritizing. What on earth is most important for Missoula? What's first? What's second? We're raising money for swimming pools. We're trying to pay off ballparks. We are dreaming about a performing arts center. We don't know if we need a metro or not. We need to get our act together on prioritizing. And we need to have a community come together to decide, yes, indeed, we can do these things. But let's do them, for God's sakes, one at a time, instead of just everybody sort of fly at it in their own regard. We'll get more accomplished if we do that better. Yes, ma'am.
In the process of bringing up things like a convention center, our medical community is obviously growing by leaps and bounds, and our subspecialties are becoming more and more popular, and there's more and more physicians that are coming to this area. And with the university and the many other things that we have the potential to do here, could you speak a little bit to how we could improve our airport facilities, in the sense that we've got to figure out how it cannot be so expensive to fly in and out of this town, and how we can possibly, whether it be applying pressure at the state level, or if you'll just speak to the fact that if we're going to have conventions and have things here, we've got to figure out how people can fly here more efficiently.
You know, it's a great question, truly is. Not so sure I have a very good answer for you. But I do see the load rates of Missoula coming and going as being pretty good. Generally that will entice more flights, more rates. We're not going to get competition on rates until we get competition on customers for flying back and forth from here to Salt Lake, from here to Denver, whatever. That's been a fact of life here for a long, long time. I don't necessarily agree that's the way it needs to be or has to be. What probably would help as much as anything is we could convince Southwest Air that they would like to come here and come in and out, because they among all airlines have done a better job of rate reduction, rate service, and so forth, and they're ranked way up on the top of most every airline's thing you see. including the cost of meals, which is 10 cents. They give you a bag of peanuts and call it good. But air service here is critical to us. We are so remote. I just think as people grow, we are 62,000 or so souls now. As we grow bigger, the potential will be there. Air service is critical. I want to come back to your first piece of the question, if I might, for just a minute. The medical community here is one of my soapboxes. I think they are the linchpin we should build on. The medical community, we have third best ratio of doctors to patients in the whole country. Boston and Rochester, Minnesota have more fewer patients per doctor than we do. But we're third. We've got the good doctors here. We've got 2 great hospitals here. If we can just develop peripheral services to it, and one comparison Dick King gave me one time is people who work in the peripheral services to the medical community make $31,000 a year. Those who work in the tourist business make 15. Now we spend millions of dollars promoting tourism. We should be spending money on promoting peripheral services to the medical community, because those jobs pay a really good wage. These numbers I just gave you are 4 or 5 years old. They're up from that, I'm sure. We talk and talk and talk about affordable housing, for instance. The problem is not how to subsidize more people into houses. The problem is how to find jobs that pay enough so they can afford a house. That's what we should be working on. We can't possibly find enough subsidy money to satisfy the demand for affordable housing. Yes, Kim?
You talk about bringing business that pays a salary base that people can live on.
Right.
What do you see that we can do to add more incentives for people to come and do business here? I mean, like General Electric ended up going over to Billings. What can we do to bring those people here to Missoula?
The first thing we do is help the people that are here already who have an opportunity to expand and grow. That's the low-hanging fruit. We go to people like Roseburg, who would increase their production and put on more people to do work, like any of the medical community that needs to grow, wants to grow. That's the first thing. I'm not much of a believer in going to the general arena and trying to outcompete somebody. I mean, we can sell Missoula as a place to live with good education, good workforce, but we don't have to buy our way into businesses coming to Missoula. It's a great town. Pam and I wouldn't be running for this seat in the council if we didn't really believe in Missoula. But if we help the businesses that are here already as a first priority, that's the first thing. Second thing might be, and I don't know how the energy question is going to go in Montana, but probably it's a better answer for eastern Montana, but we have the resources to make energy pretty inexpensively. Manufacture the energy. Distribute the energy is controlled by the Public Service Commission. So we have a potential in Montana for energy-based industry. Probably best in the eastern part of the state, but that will throw off work for Missoula as well. Yes, sir.
So how do you, if this proposed bidder resort goes in, how do you see that impacting Missoula? And would you be in favor of that in terms of as a tool to grow Missoula business?
The bidder resort is a resort that's either going to happen or not. From my point of view, if it does happen, then Missoula should stir itself to support it as best it can, which means building homes to the south, providing transportation, buses that Pam talked about, bus services, airline services, bringing people in here to do that. I don't pretend to know if the Forest Service is going to go along with McClay's request for more land or not. Right now it seems or not. And it seems like McClay's going to go ahead anyway. But let's understand, this isn't a ski resort he's building, this is a real estate development of houses that he's working on. He happens to have the resources, water, land, etc., that can do the ski resort and the golf course and the homes. So there's a good potential for a huge development. All of Ravala County is developing a lot, faster than Missoula County is. So there's a lot of development going on. Whether we like it or not, it's going on. I think we accommodate, we help out as best we can, probably infrastructure stuff as much as anything. Once again, thank you a lot for the opportunity to come talk to you. Both Pam and I are very grateful for that opportunity. We don't get that many times to do it, and I appreciate the MDA a lot. Thanks for being the organization you are, and thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Bill. Likewise, we'd like to thank both of you for coming and sharing your expertise and your views with us. And again, don't forget, they're available for questions and get involved, ask questions and help mold this into the community we want it to be. It doesn't just happen without people like them doing what they do and like people like us, getting in front of them and asking the questions and letting you know what we want. So don't forget Coffee Talk and Downtown on Tap, Parade of Lights, all the wonderful things going on this week as the last farmers market. Is that correct? Yeah.
The 20th of October.
Yeah. So try and make that, and thank you for being part of Downtown.